So amazing, right? I mean, we've seen such a collapse from the 65-ish thousand we were doing that live interview in Dubai, which was just awesome. I still remember I was the loneliest man in the room. No one really wanted to talk to me too much there. I kind of had to stand in the corner because I was the only one that was bearish. But again, price is always king. Charts are always truth versus emotion. And I think we always have to remember that whether you're a bull or a bear, price and price charts are what's going to give you the clearest signal. So we saw the break of 20,000 just this past, really this past weekend. And the key here is to understand why it broke 20,000.
Are we going to see yet another Bitcoin crash even after it's dropped below 20K? With many market bulls and bears, Gareth Soloway also joins the league and predicts another damaging drop for the famous coin. Find out more about this recent interview by hitting the subscribe button and giving the video a thumbs up while you're at it. The very famous trader, Gareth Soloway, who is the chief marketing strategist in MoneyStocks.com, recently appeared in an interview with KITCO News and talked about the recent crypto market scenario. During the interview, he answered many questions from the Twitter fam and made some clear statements of what's about to come. Initially, Soloway went on explaining how he had previously predicted for the coin to drop just below 20K, and it did. It was astonishing how the coin went from 65 to just 20K. He added that people at the time didn't wish for the coin to drop that low because that would obviously be an all-time low for the coin. He believes that in the trading world, be it a bear or a bull, the real deal is being able to read the charts. He then goes on explaining the reason behind the Bitcoin drop. According to him, knowing the reason behind the rises and the drops is more crucial than just being aware of the future of an asset. Soloway then goes ahead and explains a few recent charts and graphs. He shows the dip where the coin went from $40,000 to nearly $25,000 to $26,000. He showed this possibility of a 14 to 15 grand drop over a short period of time and claimed that it can very likely drop below that. He calls it a measured move that gives you a good basis for a low. He then explained the Bitcoin crash on a wider scale. Going back to 2020, when the coin crashed to its lowest due to COVID and the price right now, which is also a low, he draws a line and drags it up all the way to explain the two highest points of December and April when Bitcoin was doing really well. The link he is trying to draw is that there was a major drop in 2020, but then there was a 30 to 40 grand hike and a similar scenario occurred soon after with another bounce and drop. He believes that this might be a key for all the bulls in the market who would consider the 20K drop as their new opportunity. If people stick to what the charts are telling them, it's only natural that people would wait for the coin to drop further down and then start investing in hope of a hike. He also explained how once the bulls start investing, it would eventually result in the coin's value going up. What's interesting is the time period that would take this scenario to get executed. On being asked about the next bounce, he replied claiming that it would actually be a relatively fast hike, maybe in the next 2 to 6 weeks. The rise might be just like previously observed, 30 to 40,000, which is nearly 17%. But sadly, he adds that before the coin gets there, it's likely to drop further, maybe to $12,000, which Soloway says is his second price target on the downside. Soloway was then asked why he thinks the bounces would only go as high as just $30,000 to $40,000 and not maybe $50,000 to $100,000. He laughed at the question and answered saying that it would take time for the coin to go that high. Investors that plan on buying the coin on a long-term basis to hold them might be able to witness this hike over the years. He believes that there's a lot of space for crypto and Bitcoin in our economic system, and that over the years, the market would eventually go as high as $100,000 or more.
A lot of people saying, hey, 20,000 is the low, and by the way, they all came on once we got to like 30, they all piled on the bandwagon. But the bottom line is when you have everyone calling for a low of 20, you have a lot of people putting stops just under 20. And it's the tendency of a market to run those stops, make people freak out, make the weak hands exit, and then you finally get a short-term bottom. And I think that's what we have here on Bitcoin.
While as an overall trader, Soloway has always been a bear, he added that he would always be a long-term bull on Bitcoin because he does see the potential there. During the interview, a Twitter follower asked where Soloway sees Bitcoin in the next 2 to 3 years. He immediately answered saying that 2 to 3 years out, I think we're back to 65,000. He also added that these next 6 months might be the hardest for Bitcoin investors. Soloway also explains the role that inflation would play here. According to him, even if there's a 5% inflation rate and a 10% unemployment rate, the Fed might print again, which would in turn be beneficial for cryptos and Bitcoin. Unlike China's claim of crypto reducing to zero, Soloway says otherwise and adds that he doesn't believe in Bitcoin going away or going to zero. In another question, a follower asked, "Gareth, what happened to 100K? Are we retesting 69K?" People clearly wish to know if Bitcoin would reach 100K anytime soon. He replied saying that the coin is absolutely going to reach that level. When Bitcoin touched 69,000, everyone rooted for it and called it out. People predicted even that the coin would touch 100K, but then that didn't happen. That's not how the market works, says Soloway. If a coin hits its all-time high, doesn't mean it's invincible. It might hit rock bottom right after, but again, coming back to what Soloway said earlier, that the rise is bound to happen. He believes that eventually, when the economy crashes and things get pretty bad, the coin might rise and go beyond 100K. Soloway then answered yet another interesting and highly anticipated question. Once Bitcoin bottoms, how long till the next all-time high and what price? Soloway explains that the next all-time high might not be anytime soon considering the charts. It would at least be 2 to 3 years from now when the coin would rise. This might be a great time for bull investors to invest at the rates of peanuts and within a couple of years watch their investments multiply 3 times. Another follower asked Gareth at what price level would Bitcoin face an irreversible damage? Would it be below 10K? Gareth's answer was a little astonishing. He previously talked about the rises and how they were bound to happen, but to this question, he answered that in all his trading career, one thing that he has learned is that these assets are bound to go higher than expected and drop lower than expected. That only makes sense since these are the most volatile assets with almost no security. With what the Fed is doing to fight inflation, Soloway says that you have to expect a very rocky ride in terms of Bitcoin lows and highs. Finally, before the conversation turned to stocks, a follower asked, what is the next target? Is the fear that holds people from buying at the moment, or inflation, rate hikes, Ukraine, etc. are still playing their role? I think it's honestly all about the Federal Reserve. It's always been about the Federal Reserve, Soloway claimed. He continued by saying that there has been negative news for the past 5 years and then COVID struck. During that time, Fed printed more money than it had ever printed before. In Soloway's opinion, nothing matters as much as the Federal Reserve. He thinks everything, including Ukraine and the war and fear, these are all secondary things, but what's on the front line is the actions of the Fed. Soloway also cleared public doubts about the comparison between gold and Bitcoin. Bitcoin was launched back in 2009, and at this point it is only 13 years old, which is still pretty young for an asset to take over something as secure as gold in the market. He added that, sure, people initially believed that the coin would act as a safe haven against printed money, but for it to reach the kind of credibility that gold has, it would still take some time. Considering the high rates of inflation in current times and the growing recession, a follower asked, how will the looming recession affect the Bitcoin rally for 2022 and 2023? The answer is that yes, there would be some pressure on Bitcoin due to the recession. But Soloway claims that by that time, the coin would already be at its lowest, surfing somewhere around $12,000, maybe lower. So if the recession hits, the coin would go down, but not get affected too much by it. It might even drop as low as $6,000 under such circumstances, but that wouldn't be that big of a drop percentage-wise compared to the 65K drop. To conclude, Soloway added that he's looking at the bigger picture and believes that the coin would do pretty badly in the upcoming years, but eventually it would bounce back and skyrocket. If you were an investor, would you take Soloway's word and invest in the coin when it is expected to go further down? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.